much for staying tuned to Tea or Coffee on High Impact Television. I hope you are following us on all of our social media platforms at High Impact TV on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Okay, so when you pick up a book, what exactly comes to your mind when reading the story? What do you think of the author? Are you thinking in line of what the author wrote, or you have your own perspective towards that book? We are about to find out the perspectives of storytelling this morning on Tea or Coffee. And joining me this morning, I have OJ Aito. He is a novelist and a communication expert. His first work of fiction, a historical thriller, Night of a Red Moon, was culled from the June 15 Agoiwoye massacre of 2005. He's also a corporate business communications trainer. How are you doing this morning? Good to have you on the show.
I'm fine. Thank you for having me, Wura.
Thank you for joining. All right. So now we are talking about perspectives of storytelling.
Okay.
If I bring 5 people to the studio right now, and they look at this mug,
all right,
I can tell you for sure that I'm seeing blue on this cup. You would come and say, no, why are you seeing blue? This is green. This is
I know only 2
brown.
colors, actually.
Exactly.
White and black.
White and black. I don't know. Can you remember that particular picture that was going viral on social media one time of a particular dress? Some people saw it as blue. Some people saw it as gold. Some people... And I'm like... It doesn't mean they're colorblind, but it made me realize that these people have their different perspective towards something. So let's talk about how do you draw that line between perspectives of human beings and what the real fact is in storytelling? Okay,
the truth is that as long as people are going to tell stories or tell you about the news or about a happening, they will always come with their perspectives. Everybody will always come with their own narrative. Your information is always subjective, regardless of whether you're saying facts or fiction or faction, as the case may be. I'm saying something that I believe, and in as much as I know that I'm right, I'm telling you, and I want you to take it, or sometimes I'm empathetic and I understand that you don't want to take it. But I always want to push out my own opinion. And that's what the subjectivity comes, that's why when it comes to play. And when it comes to perspective in this sense, I, for one, I'm a creative. My mind is a marketplace. My mind goes back and forth. Many people screaming, shouting in my mind, and I'm walking by a street and I'm hearing the woman that's trying to bargain on a product she's trying to buy. I'm hearing the kids scream and giggle, and I'm hearing the motorbike run. And I'm taking all of these in one fell swoop. I'm taking all of this information and I'm moving along with it. And by the time I get home, I tell someone I meet at home, for example, my brother, and I say, hey, dude, it's a crazy place. The traffic was mad this morning or this afternoon. And hey, he just says that, okay, I think it was just the average kind of traffic we have, the regular traffic, just because, hey, we have different, but he probably is used to Lagos setting or the traffic setting, while I'm not so used to it because I'm coming here for the first time. So perspective would always matter, but the facts will always be there. Facts, they say, don't lie. Right? In telling stories, when it comes to the creative part now, the author or the writer is allowed to some extent to use some what they call the poetic license in, maybe not necessarily going overboard, but trying to embellish, trying to create the imagination, in the heart and the head of the reader. And so it goes back and forth some scenes. It describes some areas. It describes the sound, the time, the place, the feeling of that, so that the reader can absorb, can put him or herself right
in
there.
that position.
So there's this story that I heard when I was quite younger. It was a story of the elephant and the blind man and the two blind men. And so the blind man, one of the blind men was asked to, tell how the elephant looks. So by his feeling, he touched the tusk of the elephant and said, oh my God, this elephant actually are hard. They're so hard. While the other guy was made to touch his butt, the elephant's butt. And he said, oh my God, it's like,
so soft.
It's soft, but it's a little bit rough on the edges. So they will come to describe whatever it is based on what they feel, on what they saw, on their own perception. But of course also, our environment, our society affects how we think, how we perceive things.
How is
a
that?
white man comes into this country and says, oh my God, there are opportunities here.
Okay.
Can I bring in my products? Can I bring in my machinery to start up this thing? Because, hey, there's a lack, there's a need here. While the person who's been here all his life, who has seen everything, thinks it's normal, it's okay for to have electricity in a week, or for you to go fetching water from the stream.
Because you're used to
because
that
he's
system.
used to it. And so they say that nothing works, nothing can work. They're already in that state of learned helplessness. Okay. While someone from outside comes in and says, oh my God, this can change in the next 5 years. So perspective always matters. But hey, sometimes our society hold us bound to what we believe.
Yeah. This is a whole lot. But then let's move on to the most important thing that you have to consider in setting the context of stories.
Okay. Well, in setting the context of a story, you might want to think about the time, first off, and also the place. These two things matter a lot in the sense that, for example, my story, my book, Night of a Red Moon, is a historical thriller. Like you read it, it was coined that from a factual experience, a true life experience, And when I was writing it, I had to put in some embellishments in the sense that there were the figures, there were facts, but I didn't want to report it like a documentary kind of reporting, because I'm a storyteller, because I can, if you ask me a question, I'm always giving you examples. I'm always embellishing, not exaggerating, but making you see it in my own perspective. So I took up the story and I put it out. And the first thing you will see when you pick up the story is the setting, the time, and the place. Vultures hanging around on the tree, the sound of silence is almost encroaching into your mind. There was this young boy, a teenager in his late teen, running through the forest, and is seeking for help because he's just been whipped by some indigenous guys who, if you know what jazz mean, So he's trying to escape through the forest to get home to safety, where he believes there's safety. So he runs through this forest where vultures are hanging, scavengers are hanging, to pick up on any deadness. And so he comes out of that environment and then gets into the home where he finds help. But unfortunately, the help too was not able to help him, to assist him. And so he falls down there, and before the real help shows up, he falls down and dies. And so that setting began the story. And so there's a death in the beginning of a story that you know definitely well that it's going to be kind of a horror story, or kind of, in some sense, a thriller. Okay. So painting that picture for you, the time and the setting of that place already prepares your mind for what you'll be experiencing. So time, it's necessary. You can't say you want to write a story of Nigeria and talk about Nigeria being in the moon, or for example, in the Western world. People will say maybe you're talking futuristic, because right now we're not experiencing that in our culture. And that's why sometimes we say that, Nigerian movie makers do only movies that have to do with witches and wizards and what have you. That's because some way, somehow, it's the telling of our society. It is exactly what is happening. But
sometimes it could be exaggerated.
Sometimes it could be. Sometimes they tend to, like we said, subjectivity now. They try to want to tell you what they think about this. Because we are there, because we know about what exactly is happening, we can say what is exaggerated or not. But a Westerner listening or watching us would not know. And that's why they said the narrative of the hunter will always be there until the lion starts to say his own story.
Okay, so you mentioned something about the beginning of the story, kind of preparing your mind towards what to expect. But I've heard people say they really don't like stories whereby you're able to tell where it is going to end or what is going to happen next. They like that act of suspense the writers should put in their book. So how do you balance that when it has to do with the interest of people?
Okay, so for example, you start up with that entrance I gave to you, which right now, as I speak to you, is not even as accurate as it is in the book. So, but as you pick it up, the first 5 pages will make you decide if you want to go on with this book or not. So that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So picking up the book, for first 5 pages, you're already drawn in. So you have an idea that this is going to be a mind-blowing book, but you have no idea where it's going to be leading you. So you get, so in as much as you know that, okay, this story, oh my God, I think I have to get ready myself for some real encounter here, I still don't know where it's leading me to. And I can tell you categorically that until you get to the last page of that book, you wouldn't know where it's taking you to.
Okay, so I want to find out, why is it very important and necessary that all of this you have said should be communicated while telling your story? What is the essence of all of these factors in communication, in storytelling?
The truth is that we want to tell stories the way we feel, the way we think, the way we perceive things. And sometimes we're not happy when some other person tells our story for us. Sometimes we feel like they've not done justice enough to it. So when we see our stories outside there, and when we see something that happened to us being told in a not so complete way, we pick up the pen, or we pick up the mic. In your case, you pick up the camera and you go ahead to tell. So it is quite important to communicate the right story, and we cannot do it enough. I mean, we're here today because of how much we've told of ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, so I read a book,
Yeah.
and I want to tell the story and what I got from that book to somebody else.
Okay.
It's possible that I don't say the exact way. It's either I underrate it, or I overrate the book, or I am exaggerating something about the book because I want it to be told in my own perspective. So do you think that an individual's perspective can change the narrative or how a story is narrated?
The truth is that it can change it, but you know, it's saying that goes like this: do not judge a book by the cover.
By its cover.
Same way, do not judge a context or a story by its first narration. You know, you don't. My wife, for example, she's in the movie center. She's watching a movie, and yet she's checking Rotten Tomato, checking for reviews. You know. And I'm begging out, you came here, you paid all the way down here to see the movie. Why are you checking for reviews? You know, because she wants to know what people perceived of the movie. Because people's perception tend to affect our own, you know, judgment of the movie, of any product. So the truth is that we will always find ourselves in that situation where these things will happen. But again, you have to tell your story. You just have to keep telling your story. And I think by the time you hit the nail on the head and the story begins to spread, people begin to appreciate you more for that.
Okay, so in recreating a story, maybe just like you have said, one of your book was written from a true life experience. Now, is it allowed for the author to, you know, put down his own imaginations, what he thinks or what he feels should have happened when that story happened true life?
The truth is that if it's the novel kind of storytelling, I think the author should do that. I think the author would do that.
Why do you think so?
Because his mind it's a word by itself, and the way he sees a story or receives the news is different from the average person who is not a storyteller. So I had facts when I wanted to write a book. I had experiences of my own because I was in that night itself. But after I read the news, 12 years later, I still wasn't satisfied with the outcome, with what people knew about what happened. And I went ahead to start writing. I started writing, and halfway down the line, I realized that if I told the facts the way they were, or you know, the way it is, it would not be different from what has been said in the news. And so I said to myself, I had to conjure up some things. I had to conjure up some characters. I had to do some make-believes. I had to raise up a young man, bring up another man, bring up an alpha, an imam, bring up a prophet, bring up some major characters in the novel, and make every one of them have a conflict, and the conflict led to a resolution. So this being said, we also owe it to ourselves as writers to be on the side of humanity, meaning that you can't twist the story all the way that it becomes the opposite of what it was. You owe it to humanity to tell the story as it is, even though you still want to, you know, embellish some things, paint a better picture of what, it's like. People who never went to Agoiwe, who never lived in Agoiwe, actually know what Agoiwe looks like from reading the story. But they kept asking me the question, so did this and this actually happen? And I said, go back to the disclaimer in the book. All of these are fictitious characters. But the bane of that story was the fact that there was a massacre. And I didn't change it from it being a massacre. There was a massacre. And in the story too, there was a massacre.
All right, I have to jump in here. Now, something I want to understand. If the writer is allowed to put in his or her own imagination, don't you think, at the end of the day, won't the story be losing its originality?
Do you know what? I think, if you ask me, even our holy books, even though they said they were inspired, somehow, the stories coming down different translations and coming down the years have been twisted, not twisted in the wrong way, but made to suit the person who was telling the story in his own way, in the sense that, okay, this is what I think about this is what I believe about it, so I'm going to tell the story how I think it is. So unfortunately, there's always a loss of meaning when we go down the historical parts of storytelling. If that's why sometimes when you want to do a translation of a book, you go to the original rendering of that book so that you don't lose the translation, so that you don't lose the essence and the meaning of the book. So it happens sometimes.
Okay, now let's draw that line between creativity and distortion of fact, because sometimes you get your facts right, and at the end of the day, just in this bit, like what you just said, to get people into your own perspective, to get people to think the way you do, you distort the fact, or you're telling half story, or you're not even telling the facts at all. So let's draw that line between when you're creative and when you're not telling the real facts.
Like I said earlier, we owe ourselves and the people who read their story, we owe humanity the truth of any story.
But would every author think this way?
Well, that's where we have those people, like for example in the IT, those people who create stuff to either destroy or to make, you know. So it's the way it is. Bad and good will always exist. So people will always come with their own interests, you know. But if you listen to your heart as a creative, as a writer, you will always want to make the world a better place. Make the people who never knew about this place have a better perspective, a truer perspective of what the story was supposed to be, or this story is. And so if you go ahead to twist to the point that it becomes a 180-degree narration of the story, then you have done more disfavor to humanity than good. So you owe it to yourself. So I can't hold you to say that you must write like this, but you can decide for yourself that you want to be a better person. You want to make the world a better place by telling the story and not twisting to the point that it becomes totally untrue.
Okay, so you would agree with me that storytelling can be a means of, you know, exposing the ills of the society, or either correcting the ills of society. So if you were going to write a story about our society, or if you're going to change the narrative that's been over time about Africa or Nigeria, at the end of the day, who exactly sets the agenda for that creative writing? Would it be the society or the writer?
I think both of them have a role to play.
Tell us about it.
I think both of them have a role to play. The society, in some sense, see, my mind is shredded right now. So you help me if I go astray with the conversation.
Sure, I'll bring you back.
You get, so because that's my mind for you. Sometimes it owns me and not me own it. So the society itself has a role to play. You know, the writer too has
its role.
His own role to play. And both of them have to understand that, hey, it's a symbiotic relationship. You help me, I help you. You know, if I don't get good vibes from you, in as much as I want to write a good story about Africa or about my place, I can't be biased, you know, to the point where I hurt my own feelings just because I want to make you look good, you know. And society too must understand that, hey, we cannot project good things when truly bad things happen here. So you want something good, society must live right. the writer wants something good, he must also, look for the good in the land. But sometimes writers are, they have to feed their family sometimes, and they say bad news sell better.
Yes.
Sex sells. All this negativity is what people want to listen to. You send sense on radio or on TV, for example. You're speaking nice words, inspirational words that will transform lives, cerebral words. But people are like, oh my God, this is
boring.
This is boring. I want to hear of killings. I want to hear of shoot. I want to hear of rape. I want to hear
why?
of
Why
stuff.
do people want to hear negative things?
This question, if you ask me, for example, let me ask you too. Now, who I go ask, it's the way the world is. It's just the way the world is. Bad news sells more than good news.
Yes.
For example, you turn on your TV and there are shootings. You turn on another channel, you flip channels, and there are shootings here, there are news of bombings here, news of earthquakes everywhere. I think the world... The world is the world.
Let me not say we've gotten to the point where we just want to give out what people should see and not what you think people should see.
That's been the driving force of many people. For example, I do stuff, my own vocational stuff, and people say, if you continue this way, it will take you 20 years for you to, become known. But if you go the other route, where the popularity thing, rating and all of that, you can do it. If you go the other way, you will make fame in less than a year. So I tell people, if I don't do this, nobody will.
Do it.
If we only focus on the entertainment part of our society and not on the cerebral educational part of our society, it will only breed people who don't care about education, who don't care about knowledge seeking, who don't care about information, who just care about entertainment. And the truth is that you can't have a complete and balanced society with just everybody entertaining each other. It's not Sodom and Gomorrah. It's Nigeria. It's Africa. It's the West. It's Asia. There are people there. There are extroverts. There are introverts. There are people. We need balance. We need liberals and conservatives. We need to come together and have a sense of balance. Yeah.
I must say, this has been an interesting conversation with you, OJ. Thank you so much for coming.